Welcome to Beacon of Speech. I'm Fred Hunt. Across the table from me is Ted Coley. Hello, Ted Coley.
Hello, Fred Hunt.
How are you today?
I'm fine.
We are back in your living room because of poor communications. What had happened is on Friday I called Ted to see if he wanted to come over. He didn't call me back. I thought that maybe your vacation was extended, but you never take extended vacations. If anything, your workplace shortens your vacations.
I don't take extended vacations because then it's too hard to come back. I need to be kept on a short leash.
Yeah, whenever I think of somebody acting recklessly at work, I always think of you. Fair enough. Today is, I don't even know what today's date is. July something or another. This
10.
is Beacon of Speech number 29. Can you believe we've done 29 of these?
No.
No. I'm kind of surprised too. What are we starting on today? I told you we were going to start with Johnny Manziel.
Yes.
So let's work back to forward. We never start with sports first, or rarely do. We did when the Cavs won because that was once in a 50-year thing. Yesterday, I went to University Hospital's event in Cleveland, Ohio, right? And it was a thank you to the workers, right? Workplace thank you. I don't know what you call it. A company picnic.
Where was it?
It was at Cleveland Browns Stadium.
Okay.
And it was very nice. University Hospital is one of the title sponsors of the Cleveland Browns, blah, blah, blah. Used to be Cleveland Clinic. University Hospitals outbid them. So there's 15,000 people from University Hospitals there. And they rented out Cleveland Browns Stadium, and they rented out the Mather, and they rented out the Great Lakes Science Center. Right? So it was a very nice event. And it was a little crowded, but it's hard to accommodate 15,000 people. It just is. You know what I mean? So we got food. So one of the quote-unquote rides we went on was we got to stand in line for 20 minutes to take a 1-minute tour of the Cleveland Browns locker room. Have you ever been in the Cleveland Browns locker room?
No, I have not.
It is very nice. And I remember hearing horror stories about the old stadium, how they didn't always have hot water. They used to have rats down there. They used to have, the Art Modell days. And you've heard, even though you've never been there, you've heard stories about it, right?
Well, I just remember the stadium itself. It was like, it smelled,
Yeah. It was a big giant rat hole.
Yeah.
So the new stadium, it's not
It was like a giant urinal.
Yeah. The new stadium, it's not state-of-the-art anymore. It's from '99, but it's a nice stadium. So when we're walking in, and again, it's always inclement weather. They don't play in the summer. They play in the winter. So I'm in the locker room, and it is nice. They got some older gentlemen. The attendants, they're nice. They got real nice lockers. It almost looks like a living room. Not like a living room, but nice enough to be a living room. You know what I'm saying? So they put some money into it. I was very impressed. But because there's literally 15,000 people, the tour is very short. You're walking the whole time. So I'm walking, and I'm in the locker room, right? And I'm looking in there. They got shirts. They even got brown towels because they're the Browns. Everybody's got brown towels. And because it's the off season, there's not a lot in their locker, but you could tell it's almost immaculate, right? It's like the first day of college, when mom and dad put out, in your closet. Mm-hmm. And so it's immaculate in there. And I'm looking at all the Browns' favorite players, right? Well, a few lockers don't have little name tags on the top. I'm like, oh, those must be people who are cut or their contracts run out, right? Well, they haven't updated it. Some of the stuff is like Connor Shaw. Well, Connor Shaw got cut a month ago. Who's the wide receiver? Brian Hartline, great guy from Northeast Ohio. His stuff's still there. Brian Hartline's still there.
Oh, he's gone, though?
Yeah, they cut him, too. And I'm like, well, maybe I misread it, because there's Brian Hartline's stuff and there's Connor Shaw's stuff, right? Well, just from listening to the radio and stuff, I know that all the quarterbacks are in the same spot, right? The quarterbacks are all in the same spot, except for one. There's one with no name tag on it, and everything's gone, right? Who got cut at the end of the season?
Johnny Manziel?
Johnny Manziel. But they didn't do it right away.
Were there, like, empty beer cans? And...
No, it was immaculate. You could, eat off of the floor. Everything was beautiful. It was like what you would imagine, a state-of-the-art complex to be, right? And I was thinking they could not get Johnny Manziel out of that locker room fast enough. They literally, I think they
probably pressure washed his area.
Don't quote me on it, but I think they cut him 2 weeks before Connor Shaw. It might be a little bit more, but it was about the same time. Connor Shaw's stuff is still there. Johnny Manziel's stuff, I literally think when they cut him, they ran down to the locker room, pushed everything into a box, sent it to Texas. Like, they didn't even look up the address, just put Johnny Manziel, Texas, and they slapped a UPS sticker on it because they could not get him out of there fast enough. Now, why am I bringing up Johnny Manziel?
Because it's always good radio.
Yes, every day this week, every day this week and last week, I was reading article after article. Johnny Manziel's got new tattoos. Johnny Manziel says he's going to quit partying starting July 4th. Johnny Manziel says it's time to get in football
originally it was
shape.
July 1st, wasn't it?
What?
He was going to quit partying July 1st.
Quit partying July 1st.
And then it was the 4th?
And then I read the 4th, yes. But, again, I'm reading TMZ. I'm reading, which is, like the National Enquirer of the Internet. I'm reading CNN. I'm reading the Daily Mail, right, which is right in between the two of them. I'm looking at ESPN. ESPN still got stories on Johnny Manziel. And this is where we're going to start. Now, Johnny Manziel does not have a team, and we were talking about this last week. Johnny Manziel has no team. He's suspended for 4 games from the league, and we were talking about how it was overkill last week. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I actually started to write a short article for the Beacon of Speech website. Okay? It was 40 top sports searches on Baidu. Do you know what Baidu is?
No.
Baidu is Google of China. Okay? And I'll give you the intro. I'm just going to read it from the website because it's our website. Okay? For those unfamiliar with Baidu, it is the Google of China. Or as the Chinese would say, Google is the Baidu of America, which would aggravate Google to no end. Somehow, despite not having a team or even a league to play in, Johnny Manziel was all over news outlets every day this week across North America for a 4-game suspension, amongst other things. That made me think, Ted Coley, do the Chinese even care about the National Football League? Now, that is part 1 of my question. Do the Chinese care about the NFL?
I wouldn't think so.
So, I went to the top 40 sports searches on Baidu July 3rd, 2016, which would be last Sunday night, the night before July 4th. And it says right here, I will be testing Ted on this on episode number 29. So are you ready for the test?
Well, I don't think I have a choice.
You have no choice. The Chinese, and I'm going to skip Chinese that you've never heard of, right? Do you think the Chinese search for Johnny Manziel in the top 50?
Are you talking about people in China searching for Johnny Manziel news?
Yes.
Do I think it's in the top 50?
Yeah.
No.
Who do you think the Chinese were searching for?
Donald Trump.
Oh, no. Yeah, Donald Trump is legitimate for news. This is sports only.
Who are the Chinese searching for in regards to sports?
Sports only in the whole world. Because I cannot go one day without seeing a Johnny Manziel article in any, like I said, whether it's Great Britain, America, I even saw something on, I think it was the CNBC site had Johnny Manziel stuff. Could he end up in the CFL?
Now, you're asking me who the Chinese are searching for.
Who are the Chinese searching for?
Oh, boy, it's a sports figure.
Right.
I don't know, I'll say LeBron James.
Okay. I am circling that because you are right. He is number 6. And why were they searching for him? Because he won the championship and they love the NBA in China. Let me tell you who there's... And again, America has, 300 million people in it?
Mm-hmm.
We have 300 million people. The Chinese have 1 billion. They did not give a rat's ass about Johnny Manziel. There's a point to this whole story, and we're going to circle around back to it.
So now, LeBron was number 6.
He was number 6. And if you come up with any other one, you can throw them out. But some of these were very interesting. Number 40 was a guy from the German national team. Okay? You wouldn't know who it is. Number 39, and again, this is in China, Pan Zai-ting. She was a female...
I was going to say that.
a female Chinese billboard champ. Okay? So
Billboard?
Billiard. I said billboard, I'm sorry.
Billboard champ.
Chinese billiard champ, Pan Zai-ting. Okay? So in the whole world, okay, more people looked up a Chinese billiard champ than Johnny Manziel. But because we're in Cleveland, it's saturated. Okay? Number 39, or number 38 was an Italian soccer player. This whole list is...
you said billboard, and it reminded me of, you remember the show Taxi?
Yeah.
I remember one time somebody was asking Elaine if she was dating anybody.
Right.
And she just made somebody's name up. And she said his name was Billboard. Because she was looking at a billboard at the time.
See, that's perfect. And that might as well be on the list. So, but 38 was an Italian soccer player. Number 37, he's in the NBA. His name's Chandler Parsons. Do you know who that is?
No.
He signed a new $100 million contract with the Memphis Grizzlies. And then we're going to start skipping through here because I'm not going to name all 40. But number 36 you'll get a kick out of. Number 36 in China searches was a guy named Mozgov.
Hey!
Mozgov. Now, why do we know who Mozgov is?
Well, because he played for...
He played for the Cavs. He was the backup center. He signed a 4-year, $64 million contract as the backup center. And why was he number 36? Because the Chinese love the NBA.
More so than football and baseball?
Oh, yeah, and we're going to come back to that. Number 35, Italian soccer. 34, German soccer. Number 33, Chinese diver. 32, Usain Bolt. You know who that is? The Jamaican sprinter.
Yeah.
He's on there because the Olympics are coming. And I know you don't care about soccer, so I'm going to run right through those. Number 31, German soccer player. Number 30, Spanish soccer player. Number 29, Italian soccer player. Number 28, Polish soccer player. I'm going to give you a hint. There's no NFL players on here. There's no Tom Brady on here. There's no Peyton Manning on here. There's no Jim Brown on here. The Chinese do not give a rat's ass about football. Okay? Roger Goodell wants to get into London. They literally have 1,000 soccer teams, but he wants to spread the game in London. Roger Goodell is a moron. Okay? We'll come back to that also. Okay? Number 20.
Yeah, is there generally any other country besides this one that cares about football?
Nope. Nope. They said
our football?
They said in northern Mexico, like from Mexico City north, there's some Mexicans who like it. But they said even in Canada, they like the NFL, but they love the CFL. That's their game. They don't play, they play a more sophisticated football. 27, Roger Federer.
Yeah.
He's the tennis player. 26, German soccer player. 25, British soccer player. Number 24, Yao Ming.
Hey, I know him.
The greatest Chinese national to play in the NBA. He retired 5 years ago. The Chinese love him so much. He's still on the Chinese search engines.
He played for Houston, right?
He played for Houston. Exactly. Houston Rockets. Retired in 2011. 23, Chinese swimmer. 22, Chinese boxer, because the Rio Olympics are coming next month, which I'm sure we'll be talking about. 21, Brazilian star. 20, Brazilian star. 19, Italian star, all in soccer. Number 18 was weird. Sun Yan-in, Korean gymnast. I have no idea. 17, soccer player from Turkey. Number 16, Dwight Howard. 3 years, $23 million a year with the Atlanta Hawks.
$23 million a year?
$23 million a year for Dwight Howard, who's one of the biggest crybabies there ever was in the NBA.
Does anybody make more than that?
Well, yeah, but not by much. A few players, like make 24, 25, but they have longer contracts. Number 15, you might have heard of, Michael Jordan. 14 is a Swedish national soccer player I can't even name. Another Brazilian player. We're up to 13. And all we've had is NBA players, Chinese athletes, and soccer players, right?
Mm-hmm.
13 Brazilian national team in soccer. Number 12, Kyrie Irving. Why is he on there?
No, because we won.
Yeah, we won. So far out of the top 40, the Cavs, 3 of the top 40 searches in China. And so when Kyrie Irving talks about his brand and LeBron James talks about his brand, that's what the hell they're talking about. They're huge in China. They could retire now and literally print money in China.
So far it was Mozgov,
and
Kyrie
you guess
Irving.
LeBron.
Oh,
Yeah.
and you're including LeBron.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kyrie, LeBron, you already know LeBron's at 6. Another, number 11, another Chinese gymnast. Belgian national team soccer player at 10. Number 9, Kevin Durant. He's on there because he signed with Golden State.
Yeah, what do you think about that?
I don't know what the hell. The whole thing is that there's only so many basketballs, and you know what it kind of reminds me of? It reminds me of when Peyton and Malone went to the Lakers at the end of their career, and then they didn't win because there weren't enough basketballs for everybody. Talking about the Lakers, number 8, Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
He retired in April. So far, the only Americans on the whole list are all NBA players, right? No hockey players, no baseball players, nothing. Not even American soccer players. Not that you can name one, but you could say Clint Dempsey, for the Copa America. They actually went fairly far. Number 7 is Djokovic. 6 is LeBron James. Number 5 is Messi. He's an Argentinian who got sentenced to 2 years in prison for tax evasion in Spain. That's why he was in the top 5. Number 4, Jeremy Lin. You know who that is?
No.
He is a Chinese player playing in America, and he's the new Yao Ming. Everybody loves Jeremy Lin because he's from China. He signed a $36 million contract with the 21 and 61 Brooklyn Nets. But because the Chinese love basketball, and as far as I know, he's the only Chinese national in the league.
Now, number 1, is number 1 Steph Curry?
Nope. It's some person I never heard of. So it's like there's no number 1. It's a Chinese actress who is dating a Chinese sports figure that I never heard of before. So number 3 was a Chinese swimmer, Ning Zhe Tao. But number 2 is probably the last one you heard of, Cristiano Ronaldo, right? He dragged the Portuguese national team with him to the Euro finals in soccer. Okay? Ted, it's all Olympic-related stuff, soccer-related stuff, or NBA stuff. Now, the whole reason we went through the list is out of all those people, you basically knew, what, about 8?
Yeah, probably.
How in the world does Johnny Manziel saturate America media? And it has to go back to the TMZ-ing of America, where everything is a tabloid. Everything's about moving clicks. Everything's about seeing a train wreck. It's not about real news. Johnny Manziel is not real news anymore. Like I said, he doesn't exist. He doesn't have a team. And he was never the best player. He was never Michael Jordan. You can understand the Chinese go, oh, we love Michael Jordan. We love the shoes.
Now he's almost like a Kardashian.
Yes. He is the Kardashian of the sports world. And that's the whole thing. It's almost like he wants to parlay it. He wants to parlay it into Kardashian, his own branding. You know what I mean? There is no Johnny Manziel sports figures when it comes to China. And again, these guys talk about marketing and opening up the brand and all this other stuff. How come right now we're in pennant races, right, in July. How come there's no Derek Jeter? How come there's no Derek Jeter in the Chinese search engines?
It's funny because, the Indians were doing so well.
Oh, yeah.
And, I was talking to one of the guys at work, and he said, yeah, he goes, the Yankees are in town. And I said, yeah, the good times are over.
Well, that's the thing.
We haven't beaten them yet, have we?
I don't think so. We lost on like a last-minute homer. We got something overturned.
And they're not even that good this year. They're like
they're
500.
They're average. They got 500 record. So we went through that whole list, right? And it shows. Now we could turn around and do the same exact thing for America, but it doesn't matter because when you're talking about pure numbers, we're talking about things that don't exist, and it has to do with media taking a story and driving it. I'm sorry, I got distracted there. So once the story exists, it feeds upon itself. And then once the story feeds upon itself, it's not about the story anymore. It's all about moving eyes to the story. Now, if you want to say it's a soap opera, that's fine, but the soap operas don't go on forever and ever, Why aren't you talking about the greatness of this athlete? And it's different seasons. All those NBA players, none of them are playing right now. Now, I understand why you're talking about the Cavs, because you're still looking about the Cavs championship, right? But why in the hell are you talking about Dwight Howard? That guy is the biggest whiny crybaby there ever was. And I know you're not Chinese, and I know that we're in Cleveland, but it just drives me crazy. When I was listening to Rizzo's show before I got fired, right? They were talking about Johnny Manziel every day for a month after he got cut. It's like, don't you have anything else to talk about? Well, you could blame us and say, well, why are we talking about it? Well, I'm using him as an example on how the media feeds upon itself and basically creates stories where there are no stories.
Now, since you've been at home for the last, month and a half, 2
right.
months, do you still listen to Rizzo? Or?
Yeah, but not very much. Yeah. Because, again, when I'm at home, I'm trying to write, I'm listening to other things, and because I'm trying to set up beacon of speech stuff, I'm trying not to, cheat. And I hear something on their thing, I'm like, oh, that's a good idea, and I'll do that.
Because I didn't know if you just listened when you were in the van or,
Oh, yeah, I listened while I was in the van, but, on my way back and forth from home and everything. But now, like I said, I don't listen as much. And when I do listen, I try to listen to music more, because when you're stuck in the van, the radio's horrible.
Yeah.
How many times have we had the conversation, radio's horrible in Northeast Ohio, everywhere, basically. So you listen to talk, because at least it's new, but then they beat the same thing into the ground so much. And that's why the Johnny Manziel thing really eats at me, and I'm sorry to keep banging on that. You're like, oh, Fred, you're just as bad as them. But it's an example of how, let's use ESPN, for example. Okay, ESPN, they're the 24-hour sports news network, and then they have a second news network, and they have a third, they have a news network, a second, I keep messing up. They have a sports network, a second sports network, a third sports network, and sports on demand, right? ESPN. But somehow, all they do is talk about football 20 hours a day. And when there's no games on, they're talking about it. And when they're talking about it, they're talking about the draft, they're talking about free agency, even though there's an NFL network that talks about the NFL 24/7. They do it to the point of saturation plus, where you're talking about the minutia of minutia.
So NFL Network is on right now?
Right.
It's not just
no.
during the season?
It's on all year, because my father...
And all they talk about is football?
Yep, and my father-in-law, they rerun all the games throughout the summer, right? And so it never stops. It's a 24-hour cycle. And we're going to leave the NFL Network out of this, because they're the NFL Network. They're owned by the NFL, so they're pushing their product. The problem is ESPN is supposed to be a sports network, and they don't show. They're like, we're the leader in volleyball. Well, that's okay. You show 4 hours of volleyball a week, but you show literally 150 hours of football. That doesn't make you the sports leader in volleyball. But it's the way things move in America. They don't cover indoor soccer. They don't cover lacrosse. They don't cover ultimate frisbee. They're not really the sports network. They cater to what moves the needle. And it's the same thing with CNN and these big corporations. They don't have... Now, again, they're kind of telling the truth when they say that, oh, well, we have 4 hours of volleyball when nobody else does. Okay? But percentage-wise, they still don't do, enough men's volleyball where you could say we're the home of men's volleyball.
Now, does your father-in-law watch volleyball?
No, he watches the NFL Network. He watches the reruns of the games during the summer. And that's why I wanted to point out the Chinese. The Chinese don't know the NFL exists, right? Just like we don't know who's the best player in men's volleyball, right? We don't know who the best player is. And I'm not trying to pick on you per se, but I'm going to because you're an American. I could have named all those soccer players. You don't know any of them.
No.
Okay? Even though Euro 2016 is one of the most popular events, in the world. In the whole world. Billions of people were watching it. And that's why the Chinese were driving it. But the Americans, they weren't driving the ratings on that. They were watching stories about Johnny Manziel going to rehab or not going to rehab or his father. You see what I'm saying? And it goes back to what's leading, the cart leading the horse or the horse leading the cart. Those people overseas, now again, we're not talking about Europe because somehow they know who Johnny Manziel is. But in China, I know Ted's giving me this look like, have you made your point? You know why I beat that into the ground?
Why?
Let me circle back to why I'm beating it into the ground. Okay? This week I wrote an article for Beacon of Speech, right? And it is called How Gary Johnson Wins. And I wrote it for Beacon of Speech. I think maybe 3 people read it. I shared it online. I think 10 people read it once I shared it, right? So people actually have been reading it. After 10 people read it, I got some good feedback. So I submitted it to a national publication called the Daily Liberator. It's the libertarian online newspaper, right? And they liked it, and they picked it up. 5 days later, they said, we're attaching your things, and it got a couple dozen views. And I think a couple thousand people subscribed to the website, and it's free, right? Now, my article was called How Gary Johnson Wins, okay? Now, I'm not saying it was the best article ever written, okay? But I think it was a valid article, okay? And I think it had merit, okay? And I know you know that I'm a big Gary Johnson honk. Now, instead of talking about how Gary Johnson wins, and take my article out of it, you're not hearing CNN talk about how Gary Johnson wins. You're not hearing about Fox News how Gary Johnson wins. You're not hearing overseas. They're talking about how Donald Trump is a racist and how Hillary is a crook. Okay? They drive the news. There is no news about there's a third option.
Yeah,
right?
I watch Fox News quite a bit.
Right.
And I don't think they ever even mention Gary Johnson.
Right. So for the casual viewer that doesn't know, you're directing the news. You are giving, again, and we'll use the ESPN example, Fox News has 24 hours a day, 150 hours worth of news. If they have 150 hours worth of news, they're probably talking about Donald Trump 70 hours a week. Would you say that's probably fair? If they say the words Gary Johnson, it's at 3 a.m. in the morning. Now, Gary Johnson runs for president. To me, he's a viable third option. Now, maybe they've done their homework and they're like, we don't think he's a viable third option, right? But to Fox, he doesn't exist, just like the Chinese scenario. You see what I'm saying? Fox is driving what the news is. Fox is driving the news is Trump. Now, Trump is the news, that's true. But is he half the news that exists in all of the United States? No. It's all about driving ratings. And again, just like ESPN has to drive, you see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the analogy I'm trying to use. I hope people are picking up on it. And again, take Gary Johnson out of it. And this is where we're going to get heavy, and I didn't want to get bogged down. President Obama this week said that there is no, that America, what was the quote that he said? That we're not in trouble when it came to the race wars. Is that true? Is that what was his quote?
I'm not sure what he said about that. You're saying he said there's nothing to see here, move on, or
basically that he said we're not in trouble. We're trying to sort things out because he's in Europe right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, CNN is covering the shootings. Now, the first shooting, it was horrible. The one in Minneapolis, that was bad. Okay, that was horrible. Okay. Now.
So did you see that?
No, I started to watch it, and I'm like, this is horrible. That guy's got to get charged. That Minneapolis cop.
Well, when did the video start? Was it after he was shot, or
it was like when they shot him?
Yeah.
She did it when they shot him. You know what I mean? I started to watch. I'm like, I can't watch this. And that cop's got to get charged. Okay, the one in Minneapolis.
So it's not on video anything before him getting shot, so you don't know what happened.
No, I did not see anything beforehand. But by all, it's not like Rodney King, where Rodney King was high on PCP and going crazy, and then they edited that out. This one, it was fairly cut and dry that it was the cop's fault. The cop had an itchy trigger finger and was, basically stereotypical shaking at the hand. Don't grab that gun! You know what I mean? The black guy had the concealed carry permit. Right? He's in the right. Okay? The problem is, and this is the example, the reason I wanted to start on Johnny Manziel. The thing in Minneapolis was horrible. Okay? But once it hit CNN, they're fanning the flames. Yeah. Just like the Johnny Manziel example. People in China wouldn't have known. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Now, it's horrible, and that guy in Minneapolis has to be charged. But using the example of Johnny Manziel, CNN, Fox News, all the news outlets basically are pouring gasoline on the fire.
Yeah.
Okay? So when Obama says, we have things to sort out, that's what he's trying to say. But part of the reason whenever these things happen, Obama singles out the quote-unquote innocent black guy who you find out later was an innocent. You know what I mean? He's not singling out the cops who are doing their job. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So he's picking out what news he wants to filter out. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And so it's all about what you want to publicize. And when we're Beacon of Speech, we talk about what Fred and Ted want to talk about. I have my outline, and then we bounce it off. But we never go over an hour and 40 minutes. I don't think we've ever gone an hour and 42. Okay? And we talk about different things. But what happens in America is now you have 24 hours a day beating on the same horse, different angles. This guy was horrible. And let me be very clear. That guy in Minneapolis, he got screwed. Okay? The guy who got shot. He seemed like a good guy. There is no horrible backstory. The cop is clearly in the wrong. Okay?
I just haven't seen it.
Right.
So I can't really comment.
No, I started and then I had to turn it off because I'm like, I can't watch this. But it's moving, and I don't want to sound like a right-wing conservative, but it's moving the agenda. Okay? Now, here's the problem in America. Okay? And I'm going to use this example, and you can argue with me if you want. Jello Biafra, he's a famous lead singer of the Dead Kennedy. He did a lot of spoken word songs, okay, or spoken word performances. And one of them was called Become the Media. And he said in the late 90s, everybody has cameras, right? When the police are abusive, you tape them.
Yeah.
Right? You become the media. He's been saying this for almost 20 years. Okay? I'm sure that this has been going on for more than 20 years.
Oh, yeah.
The problem is that people think, oh, well, it only happens to black people. Well, I think in the 20s, it was only happening to the Irish people. And then in the 30s, it was only happening to the... You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But you have... When you are a law and order society, you have to err in favor of the police. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah.
You can't err in favor of the criminals, or next thing you know, you have Albania in 2005 where there's anarchy.
Yeah.
Okay, now you don't want to hear that, but do you want to err? And I'm asking you a general question. Everybody says everything's got to be even, okay? But when the police... And you can argue with me if you want, because I've heard about, when I was a kid, I heard about police brutality. I remember police beating up hippies. Okay, you remember when Ted, did you hear about police beating up hippies?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Poor hippies who weighed 140 pounds with hair halfway down their back, and they just teed off on them. Do you remember any black hippies?
No.
No. I don't remember any black hippies either. Okay? That's because they were beating on, and they just said, oh, we're going to beat on some hippies. Society erred, even though they beat up some hippies that they shouldn't have, okay? The hippies were like, well, they're beating on some of us, they should. You see what I'm saying? And you have to err on the side of law and order. Now, they'd be like, well, if they shot your son, well, guess what? They shoot people all the time. I just read an article 2 weeks ago about this frat boy who got shot. And the parents want to sue them, and because they're worth $1 million, and they're like, well, granted, my son was in the wrong, right? And this is a white frat kid. He was in the wrong. He was drunk off his ass, right? He was 100% in the wrong, but we have $1 million, so we're going to sue the police. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the Black Lives Matters... Now, and again, I'm singling this Minneapolis case out. But a lot of these, you don't have enough cops because you keep cutting the budgets, so the cops are frazzled. And then they don't shoot the guy who messes up. They shoot after somebody spits on them in January, somebody kicks him in the groin in February. In March, somebody calls him a dumbass honky. He works every day in overtime on April. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And then by May, he's like, oh, and he's shaking, and he's worked every day for 2 months. If you don't have enough, and people don't seem to understand this. They can't put themselves. They sit at home, and they can't put themselves in the shoes of the police officers.
And I don't know if where that guy got pulled over in Minneapolis,
right.
It's a suburb of Minneapolis.
Yeah, but it's, yeah.
Is it kind of a rough area?
Yeah, but nowhere in Minneapolis is that rough. You see what I'm saying? I lived in Minnesota. Nowhere in Minnesota is like Cleveland or Detroit, right? Mm-hmm. And nowhere in Cleveland or Detroit is like New York or New Orleans. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. Or Chicago. One of our first episodes, all we talked about were people shooting each other in Chicago. I mean, what was it? It was people were shooting somebody every day. It was like episode 3, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't get on the news because there's no agenda, okay? There's a drug deal, and we'll use Chicago, for example. In Chicago, there's a drug deal, and it doesn't matter whether they're black or white, but there's a drug deal, guy shoots the other guy, right? There's no agenda to push. You see what I'm saying? Next day, 2 white guys shoot each other, no agenda. 2 Latin guys shoot each other, no agenda. white cop shoots a black
yeah,
guy.
they just want to promote.
All of a sudden, woo,
they
that
wanna
goes to the
promote
top.
the racial angle.
The racial agenda.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it doesn't happen, because it does. But everybody has their prejudices. And, again, I keep seeing if you don't want... If you want, pull the police out. If you had more police, the police wouldn't be frazzled.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? They're making them work harder and making them more frazzled. Now, let me give you an example, okay? And I know this is off topic, but I used to work at Taco Bell, right? Oh, Ted's taking a drink of water. I used to work at Taco Bell, okay? And there were all kinds of shenanigans through the drive-thru. And some days you just want to take a customer and just punch them in the mouth. Okay?
So there was shenanigans and malarkey and
Shenanigans and malarkey and hijinks and all that. Okay? But I never did it. But when I worked at Snow Road, one of my employees went through the drive-thru window, and this was before cell phones, and tried to punch a customer. Went through the window, reached into the car, and tried to punch him. I had to drag him back in. Okay? Now, that's just people...
And was that the end of it?
Oh, yeah, that was the
no
end of it.
discipline?
Yeah, well, because the guy effing with them, I didn't discipline him because my employee was in the right, and the guy effing with them was drinking and driving.
Yeah.
He's not going to call the cop, and it was before cell phones.
Yeah.
Right? But that's just serving tacos to people all day. That's all it is. Here's your taco, give me your money. Here's your taco, give me your money. You have a bad day, you're going to chuck. You're going to take a swing at somebody once in a while if you get sick of it. It's not unheard of. The reason I bring that up is this week I was on the Daily Mail, right? And there was a video of a girl, and she was taking a credit card from Taco Bell at the drive-thru, taking the credit card, and she was giving the customer the drink. Well, they were playing a prank on her, and they were live streaming it. And they're like, we're going to prank this girl. We're going to beat the horn at her super loud when and they're talking into the phone. She leans out, and you could tell she had a bad day. She's like, okay, that'll be XXX, however much money it was. Leans out. Guy just lays on the horn. Scares the girl to death. She looks like she's going to jump out of her socks, right? And she's like, oh, I'm so sick of this. She leans back, takes the drink, chucks it in the car. Large Pepsi right in all over. It's on live stream. And they're laughing. And she's like, here's your credit card. She threw the thing back in, slams the window. And that was, the end. Okay? Cops put up with a lot of crap. And people don't seem to understand that. Okay? Now, if you cross the line like the guy in Minneapolis, you need to get charged. Okay? Because there's one thing about punching a guy or giving him a little extra, what for, like in a hockey fight. Mm-hmm. But if you shoot him and kill him, then you got to get charged.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And again, I'm talking about Minneapolis. In Great Britain, I don't think they shoot him. They just give him the business. You know what I mean? Now, that happens every day of the year in police departments from Bangor, Maine, all the way to Seattle, okay? But it doesn't fit the agenda of white cop, black man. You see what I'm saying? And that's why I use the Johnny Manziel example, because it's not life and death. Johnny Manziel is literally, sports is the candy store of society, right? Mm-hmm. But all this agenda-driven stuff, if you take the statistics, it's the crime is out of control in these cities, and then when they try to crack down on crime, they're like, you are abusing us.
Yes.
No matter what nationality it is.
Well, that's the thing. In a high crime area, it's bad for the cops, and
right.
It's bad for anybody who's not a criminal who lives there.
Right.
Those are the sides that suffer.
Right. But when you have people fanning the flames to Jesse Jackson, I saw Jesse Jackson for the first time in 3 years this week.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, of course, there's a news camera. And I think part of the reason is it is so blatant that this case in Minnesota, was like 100% the cop's fault. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I that's what I've been hearing, but like I said, I didn't see.
Whereas some of these, like we use Trayvon Martin as the, there was a little bit of him and a little bit of, twisting on both sides. Okay? And that's why it seems to fan the flame. They finally found an example. And like I said, I'm sure it's happened in the last 100 years. I remember reading about how they singled people out on the West Coast, the poor Chinese immigrants, and it's where do you draw the line? And of course, there's going to be bad cops, just like there's bad everything.
Yeah.
Bad Iron Mountain drivers, But Ted's laughing because I was a bad Iron Mountain driver. Apparently, that's how I got my ass fired. But again, my job was not life or death. Okay. If I lost media, which I never did, okay? If I lost media, nobody died. You know what I'm saying? That's why you need more cops. You need cops that have downtime. You need cops on patrol where they're just walking, where they're interacting with people. When you cut things to the bare bone and you turn a police department into a corporation where you're like, oh, well, if you just work straight from the time you walk in to the time you walk out and the time you're not doing stuff, you're doing paperwork.
That's another vicious cycle, is that the areas that need a lot of cops can't afford it.
Right. Right, and that's why you go to these nice suburbs. And, I remember living out in Brunswick, and they had some of the nicest cops in the world, right? Well, yeah, because they're not stressed out, because they can do the job in the right amount of time, the right amount of cops. They were a growing city. But again, when your city is shrinking, like the city of Cleveland, and they're like, we got to lay off cops. No. You don't lay off cops first. You lay off cops last. You see what I'm saying? You lay off councilmen first, and you lay off cops last. Or you lay off, you see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And that's what people don't seem to understand when they're like, oh, the cops are mean. Well, yes, because they're stressed out. And there is no stress. Here's something else I read. It was something weird in the English Premier League. And the owner of this English Premier League team, okay, they used to be on the top. In 2011, they were in the top Premier League. They were the top of the pyramid. In the last 5 years, they got relegated to Division 2, then Division 3, then Division 4, right? Well, the guy didn't want to face the music, right? He didn't want to see the fans. He was a millionaire. He lived in his own, gated community. He didn't want to hear anything about it. Well, after 20 years, he had a news conference with the fans. He goes, I've been getting a lot of negative feedback. What's wrong? Basically, the fans chewed him a new hole for 45 minutes. And they said he was visibly rattled. He didn't know there was so much anger. Well, yeah, you haven't talked to the fans in 20 years because you were too busy behind your gates. And could you imagine if he actually faced the fans every day for 20 years? He was rattled facing the fans for 45 minutes. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Well, it's the same thing with the police. If you were facing angry constituents, the poor, the downtrodden, the people all day long, they're not facing a lot of rich people. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. In the places where there's riots. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. And that's why when I say it's a media creation, I'm not saying they created it. I'm saying that they fit something that fit their theme, and then they pushed it. Just like we're going to promote, just like the ESPN's like we're going to promote the NFL 100 hours a week and then volleyball 4 hours a week. They're going to be like, we're going to talk about this white cop shooting a black guy 100 hours a week, and we're going to talk about, that trade deal that expired that cost us $1 billion. We'll talk about that for 4 hours. That's volleyball. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, if you
do you understand my analogy now or no?
Yes, I mean they're pushing something.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean if you watch the news, you would think that this is happening like every second of every day.
Oh, don't get me wrong. I think it is happening every second of every day. The problem is that when it happens, it's like the rich kid, the fraternity, the white fraternity kid who's suing the cops for $1 million. Well, we know that our son was so drunk he could barely stand, but that doesn't give... Stuff like that happens every day because the police are trying to keep law and order, and every single day people are trying to break the law and order. You see what I'm saying? Just like, if Steve was here, he'd be like, I tried to keep Iron Mountain safe, but Fred kept deteriorating, deteriorating my authority.
Fred was like termites.
Yeah. So what they do, and I read something, it was like a Black Lives Matter thing, and they're like, well, don't forget, this is the 12th time it's happened in the last 5 years. And I'm like, it probably has!
Yeah.
Just like in the 60s, you know what I mean? They were beating on the hippies in the West and in the North, and they were beating on the civil rights people in the South, and in India... The police were beating on Gandhi's people. You see what I'm saying?
Why is it funny when you say beating on hippies? And anybody else you say it's not funny, but there's something about hippies that it makes me laugh.
And they'd be like, well, they don't deserve to die. And I agree. But where is your line? Okay? If the police act like they do in Minneapolis, somebody's got to get charged. And when it's on the hairline where, there was two guys and the criminal and the police were fighting with the gun and they were wrestling on the floor, and the criminal had a rap sheet 10 pages long, and then there was a policeman, well, you have to err on the side of the police. But you can't get it on the line in the middle. And then once you push it on the criminal side, then you're in real trouble. Then you have, again, Albania in 2005, where we're just going to burn this, mother down, or Afghanistan right now, where they're like, oh no, the law is whoever is the tribal leader. That's the law. And if you go down 2 more caves, you have a different set of laws.
So that was going on in Albania in 2005?
I can't remember maybe it was 98. I remember it was around the year 2000, and they said Albania was in a state of anarchy. Not pretend anarchy, real anarchy. And I'm like, it's the year 2000, and it wasn't exactly 2000, but it was around 2000.
Well, what caused this?
I don't even remember. But I just remember thinking, it's the year 2000, Albania has real anarchy in the year 2000, which is incomprehensible to me. I understand how you have anarchy in Africa, okay? I don't understand how you have anarchy in Europe. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Now, are they back to, a peaceful situation now? Or?
Oh, yeah. They're back to semi-normal. I'm sure they're still corrupt as hell, but at least, it's not pure anarchy. But yeah, but the way you hear the news now, again, you think that there's only 2 shootings. Now, something like the space shuttle exploding, to me, that is a once-in-a-generation thing. That's huge news. Or who's someone beloved? Prince. Prince dying. That's something once in a generation. You know what I mean? Police shootings literally happen every day. When everybody gets guns, that's what you get. Police shootings. Again, it's what fits the narrative. Because I know you want to say something else. You're shaking your head like...
No, I mean, it is funny if you watch the news. It's like they just pound stuff into the ground.
Yeah. And it's because it fits the narrative of the white people get mad because they think the cops are unfairly attacked. Again, that's what the news thinks, so they turn on the news. And then the black people are angry because they're getting shot down in the streets. And so they turn on the news. Well, if a white guy kills a white guy, that doesn't drive people to the news channel. Yeah. If the black guy shoots the white guy. Well, that doesn't drive to the news channel. It feeds on preconceived notions, and that drives the ratings.
Yeah.
And there's certain hot button issues that drive ratings. And that's why it feeds upon itself. Now, if you could come back to me and say, well, Fred, well, okay, then don't have white cops. Okay?
Yeah.
And I hate to say it, but let's just push it all the way through. Okay? Let's go to Black Lives Matter is 100% right. Now, I don't agree with that, but let's do their argument. No more white cops in population centers that are 50% black or more. Okay, we're going to have only black cops.
Is that one of their suggestions, or is that...
No, this is the Fred Hunt suggestion. Okay. We're only going to have black cops only. Right? Now, do you think... What will be the next thing? You see what I'm saying? I don't think that solves the problem. Because at the end of the day, it's not about the white cops. It's about law and order. So if you only have black cops in poor areas, then you'll be like, well, it's not fair. You only hire us in poor areas. Yeah. Well, but that's because it's mandated that it has to be all black cops, right? So now you're starting to you're creating a new problem. You see what I'm saying?
You know what they need in those areas is a bunch of RoboCops.
Well, and that's the premise of RoboCop, where they didn't have enough cops. They said, we're not going to put up with this. And I literally, Ted, you got your pulse on society and you don't even know it. Okay? RoboCop was 1988 Detroit, when Detroit was going down the shithole, right? Oh, crap hole. So the theory is RoboCops can't tell whether you're black or white.
Yeah.
They just do the job. No, because it's not a white or black thing. It's a cop thing. We want to break the law. And again, the one in Minneapolis, we're not counting that, okay? It's a law and order versus no law and order thing. And these are all urban centers, okay? When the guy in Dallas got killed, okay, not the cops, but the shooter, okay, he killed 5 Dallas cops, correct?
Yeah.
And he only wanted to kill white cops. Who killed the Dallas shooter?
Oh, it was the robot, the bomb.
Right. Now, he was very upset about that, and I read that.
Who was very upset about that?
He was. I just read that article this morning on CNN. The guy who died, the Dallas shooter, took his own blood. He was wounded. He wrote on the wall, DB, okay, or BD, right? Because he had military training, it was the abbreviation for a robot. He got shot. He didn't get shot by a white cop. He didn't get shot by a black cop. He got shot by the robotic bomb, whatever it is. Yeah. The technology thing. Because it wasn't about him. At that point, he's like, you know what? I'm killing everybody I can. I want people to know that some white guy had to get a robot to kill me.
Oh,
you see what I'm saying?
So it was the robot that killed me, but it was a white guy who made the decision to...
Right. So when he wrote in blood the initials of the robot...
So that guy was pissed off until the very end.
Literally, he's dying. And he knows he's getting killed. And he knows it's the bomb robot or whatever killed him. He wanted everybody to know that nobody killed him. He got killed by the robot. Okay? That's where we're going with this. Because it's not a white and black thing. White and black drives the ratings. Okay? Once it's a robot, then it's a new fight. They're like, well, why can't people come in here and police us? You know, why do you have to send robots into the poor neighborhoods? You see what I'm saying? Because it drives the narrative. Next thing you know, they'll be like, well, who's pressing the robots' buttons?
Yeah.
And now you're into a new argument. You see what I'm saying? Now you have a new narrative. No robots in the inner city. Because this
You
argument...
know, and then after a while, it's like people be bitching because the robots are from China. We want American-made robots. And
Right. And that's why I wanted to point out what makes news in China versus what makes news in America. Because this whole thing, it's like every time I look now, they're like, oh, now there's demonstrations. And now the Minneapolis, and don't get me wrong, I understand why they're demonstrating in Minneapolis. But why in the hell were they demonstrating in Dallas? You see what I'm saying?
so that robot shot him?
When I read the article,
blew him up.
When I read the article, I was unclear whether the robot exploded him or shot him, because they said that.
Wasn't he able to see the robot?
Well, that's the thing. Yeah,
he
said. Well, again, all he did was take his blood and write the robots and just say DB for DB Sweeney. Okay, I don't know what the robot's initials were. Okay, but it was the bomb robot. Okay, so I don't know if he saw the robot, because it said it was killed with tactical weapons. So I don't know if it was a gun. I don't know if it was an explosion. But some people are like, well, if he was wounded and he was writing on the wall in blood, why didn't they use tear gas to subdue him? Well, they already killed 5 cops. It's too late. You don't get tear gas to get subdued. You get blown up, which is, that's the police's right. Okay? And I want to make it crystal clear. When I worked at Taco Bell, I was not a fan of the cops, because I would come home from Taco Bell, and I remember they would pull me over, and I'm white, and I'm like, what can I do for you? And they're like, you've been drinking? And even in my book, I talk about the cops. They harass people.
Yeah.
Okay, they just do. Pull me over at 3 in the morning. What are you doing at 3 in the morning? I'm coming home from Taco Bell. Were you drinking? I just said I'm leaving Taco Bell. Okay? And then he'd be like, sir, don't raise your voice at me. And he reaches towards his belt. Right? I had that happen to me twice. I'm coming home from Taco Bell. And again, I'm like, well, what can I do for you? And he goes, then when I see him reach for my belt, I'm like, hey, we're all friends here, I'm on my way home from Taco Bell. Well, why were you working till 3? Because I came home, and I remember cops telling me to calm down, and they reach for their thing. And I'm like, I work till 3 in the morning, right? And he's like, well, one time I got pulled over because my license plate light was off.
I got pulled over for that.
Yeah. And again, that's what they do. That's what cops do. And when I was at home in Brunswick getting pulled over at now it wasn't Brunswick cops, because I wasn't working at Brunswick when it happened. I was always coming from Cleveland to Brunswick, right? Or Brook Park to Brunswick. But they were always like, well, how much you been drinking? And they're always sniffing. They're always, it's 3 in the morning. We don't know what this crazy kid's doing. I'm like, I remember grabbing my Taco Bell uniform and saying, I left Taco Bell. And they were still giving me an attitude. That's the way cops are. You know what I mean? But in their head, there's this narrative, because someone shoved a CNN camera, they're gunning us down! You know what I mean? Because as soon as they reached for their pocket, I was smart enough to say, hey, we're all friends here. My hands are on the steering wheel where you can see. You know what I'm saying? And again, there were no. I don't anticipate there were a lot of black people on my trip from Brook Park to Cleveland. I could go, they're harassing the young people. They're harassing the youth, and it's not fair that they're harassing the youth. Because, today it's the youth, and tomorrow it's they harass the... You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Now, if you come up with statistics, not there's more... Now, again, you could say, well, there's more blacks in jail, percentage-wise, blah, blah, blah. Okay, now I'll listen to those statistics, but when it comes to pulling people over, people, that's what cops do. They harass people. You know what I mean? They stop you and you get in, hey, we're all friends here, and, we're going to stop messing around. But not even the local paper, when the cops were harassing me at 3 in the morning, wanting to know what I was doing when I wasn't doing nothing, it never even made the Sun News. You see what I'm saying? Well, he shouldn't have been out at 3 in the morning. Okay, I won't work my job till 3 in the morning. I'm sorry I drive an old beater
Yeah.
at 3 a.m. to my job.
Yeah.
And again, this didn't happen once. It didn't happen twice. Now, sometimes I did get tickets because I have a lead foot. I've probably been pulled over in my life 18 times. And I didn't go around driving while young because there's no narrative to that.
Yeah.
Of the 18 times I've been pulled over, I've never been pulled over and they're like, well, you were doing 100 and a 55 and we're going to let you go. It was always, well, you know what, it's 3 a.m. and your right tail light's out. And I'm like, no, it's not. And they're like, oh, well, it was flickering. Oh, really? It was my license plate laid out, and then 2 months later it's You see what I'm saying? Because, again, they profile. Well, guess what? You're erring on the side of law and order instead of erring on the side of the criminal. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I didn't know that you... I have one person who would agree with you is Steve. But it's probably... You probably get very little comfort.
Oh, no. Well, that's the whole thing. The cops have a hard job. They do. Okay? And people need to support cops. But when they cross the line, like they did in Minneapolis, they got to be prosecuted. When the cop is half wrong and the criminal is half wrong, well, guess what? Of course you got to side with the cop because you're a law and order society. And that's where a lot of these cases get publicized because the cop is half wrong and the criminal is half wrong. But this magical narrative that exists, that's why CNN is like, see, this whole time, all these poor innocent people. My wife has a cousin, and he's like the biggest criminal there is, okay? I'm not going to say his name, and you don't know him. But, I mean, he's like, the cops harass me, and they're always trying to shut me down and take away my way of living. And I'm like, because you circulate stolen goods, idiot. That's why they harass you. You know what I mean?
Trying to destroy my business.
Yeah, they're trying to say, well, you sell stolen merchandise. Well, the guy's got to make a living. And he's as white can be. And again, if you don't want to be a law and order society, we don't have to be. You know what I mean? We could become, you name it. We could become Mexico. You know what I mean? Where the cops are wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And you hope the cops help you, but, there was something where I guess journalists in Mexico try to expose corruption in the police force. And then the journalists get killed, and then the cops are like, well, what are you going to do? We can't protect anybody, or we can't protect everybody. Well, if you want, we could become Mexico. And that's why you have to, I keep seeing this whole thin blue line on Facebook, okay? There's a thin blue line. If being a cop was really a horrible job, okay, really, really a horrible job, they wouldn't be able to fill the police departments. Now, if you go out to the suburbs or the country, they have no trouble filling out. The problem is in the inner cities. Yeah. It's these urban, and then if you can't fill it, then you have to pay the cops more because you can't get any. Mm-hmm. You see what I'm saying? Well, if you keep cutting budgets, you can't pay the cops more, and now you're back in the vicious cycle. But that doesn't fit in a 30-second soundbite, and it doesn't move eyeballs to news sites.
Yeah, there's no way I'd want to do that job in a, city.
Yeah. And there's no way I would want to do it either. And that's why, like I said, I respect them, and I'm I I respect the job that the cops do, right? The problem is not everybody respects cops, right? And they're like, well, there's bad cops. Yeah, I know. I've met a few of them. But if it was a horrible job, you wouldn't have oh, my dad was a cop and my grandfather was a cop. If it was a horrible job, like I said, I think there's a waiting list in half of the suburbs out here to be a cop. You never see people, like out in Westlake, out in Brunswick, out in Strongsville, you never see now hiring cops, right? But in Cleveland, every year, we're looking for cops. Wasn't there a billboard last year that said Cleveland Police Department now hiring?
Yeah, I think so.
Now, have you ever seen that in any other suburb? No, because out there it's not a crappy job. But people don't put it into real world terms. I'm glad that Steve. You know why Steve doesn't like the cops? I'll tell you off mic. But it has to do with. I won't even say it on the thing. I want to talk about music. Did you want to add anything? Oh, I wanted to add one more thing. 2 days ago, headline on CNN: Beyonce says stop killing us. Okay, I wrote this down too. Are they killing Beyonce?
No.
Beyonce's dad, as far as I could tell, was a record producer, and she basically had every advantage that a middle-class white person would have, like Taylor Swift. Would you say that's fair?
That's what her dad was, a record?
Yeah. He created Destiny's Child, or whatever the first band was. So he created them, making her the star of the band, right? And then when he didn't like the other two singers, he fired them, right? Because his daughter was the star. Doesn't that sound like something a white family would do? Okay? So when Beyonce says, stop killing us, they're not talking about her, okay?
So she's saying stop killing billionaire singers?
Yeah. She's basically saying stop killing Taylor Swift. Because she had the advantages. Like I said, her dad created Destiny's Child like a boys band. Like a boy band.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And then when they didn't like the other two singers, then they replaced them and Beyonce was the star because that's his daughter. Well, guess what? I've heard that story 100 times in white circles. So I don't want to hear how black Beyonce is.
I'm sure in his mind, he's probably thinking, well, that wasn't favoritism. She was just the best one.
Yeah, she was just the best. My daughter just happened to be the best one in Destiny's Child. It was a coincidence.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Do we have protesters? I looked out 2 or 3 times. I hear people talking out there.
It wouldn't surprise me.
Are they protesting Beacon of Speech already? So I don't want to hear her. And when I say Obama stirs the pot, Beyonce is the same thing. She gets in a narrative. Obama picks certain cases and publicizes them because, again, Obama is the president. He's like CNN. He publicizes cases that he wants, and cases he doesn't want to publicize, he doesn't talk about. But it fits his narrative that he learned when he was growing up in Chicago. And there's no money in publicizing black-on-black crime like there was in Chicago.
Sometimes I feel like Obama is more of an activist than a president.
Oh, yeah. But in his defense, how many years did I work at Taco Bell? I worked there 15 years, right? And I haven't worked there in 15 years, but I'm still talking about it. So Obama was a community activist, and in his heart, he still is that community activist. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that's why when I hear talking about Obama, I'm like, well, he is what he is. That's his job. Just like, you get a scumbag lawyer. Who was the scumbag lawyer we were talking about a couple weeks ago? And we said at heart, he's just a scumbag lawyer. But I can't remember. He was like, I think if we were talking about Roger Goodell, the head of the NFL commissioner. Right now, he's an NFL commissioner. I don't think he practices law. And before he was NFL commissioner, he was assistant commissioner. Before that, he was something else. He probably hasn't practiced law since he was in his 30s. You see what I'm saying? But now that he's NFL commissioner, in his deep black heart, okay, Roger Goodell is just a lawyer. That's all he is.
He is a lawyer, though?
Yeah. So that's why I don't blame Obama, because that's his MO. That's what he grew up doing. That's what he came to age doing. They're like, oh no, I'm all about constitutional law. No, that's what you studied in college. I studied religion in college. How much religion do we talk in this program? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So his career was community activist. That's what you cut your teeth on. Okay, we're going to run out of time soon, so I did want to bring up one or two other things. Wasted Space. I'm going to hand you this. I want you to fill this out by next week and tell me about the band a little more. I'm going to take these home. Ace Frehley. Do you like or dislike Ace Frehley?
I really don't have an opinion.
You don't have an opinion?
No. I was never a big Kiss guy, believe it or not.
I liked Kiss. When I was a kid, I always thought Kiss was cool. Okay, but then when I was a teenager and they took off their makeup and then they did Lick It Up and they didn't have makeup on, I'm like, these guys are just kind of hair metal. And I hate hair metal. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I don't really like Kiss anymore. Okay? And then they're like, no, we're putting back on our makeup. Please come to our concerts. I was like, you know what? I think you've crossed. There's some lines you can't uncross. So I never really liked, Kiss anymore. So, but I still like Kiss from before they took off their makeup. I could, go through the list, but you would be bored. Okay?
That was the early 80s when they did that?
Yes, I want to say 84, 85. Because hair metal was becoming popular and they were following a fad. Because, again, Gene Simmons... At the end of the day, Gene Simmons, okay, he was all about making money in his band, okay? I'm convinced that Peter Criss, Ace Frehley, and Paul Stanley were all in a band to make money. You see what I'm saying? They all had it the other way. And that's why Gene Simmons was like, we're going to take off our makeup and we're going to ride the hair metal wave. We're going to be because we're better than all these hair metal guys. We'll be the best hair metal band. We'll make even more. You see what I'm saying? He made business decisions, but I think the other three just wanted to be in a band. You see what I'm saying? And make a living being in a band. Mm-hmm. I get the impression that Ace Frehley is a musician. Maybe you disagree.
No, I really don't know that much about him, but he was the lead guitarist.
Right.
Yeah.
The point is that Ace Frehley released an album last month, and just because I was being stupid and I was trying to listen to new music, I'm like, Ace Frehley, I wonder what the hell he's doing. He did an album of covers, 15 covers that you've heard of, right? But, so I'm listening, and I'm like, Ace Frehley's not doing too bad. He did a cover of White Room by Cream, which is amazing. It knocked me off my socks. I was literally stunned. Okay?
Was he singing, or?
I think he was singing, and then one of his friends was doing, the refrain, because he can't hit the, high notes. So he was doing, the chorus, and then the other guy's doing the refrain. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then, I don't know who it was, and then he's playing, with the searing guitar. If you get a chance, it was amazing. It was like he captured magic, and it reminded me that Ace Frehley did not do that to make money. He did it because he loved that song. And he did that album, even though some of the other songs on the album were kind of flat. he might have made that album to make some money, but you could tell that he loved White Room by Cream, that he like tore it up. You know what I mean? And whenever I talk about money, you know, do people do things like I want, and let me be crystal clear, I want to do Beacon and Speak and make money. You know, you see what I'm saying? I don't want to make money by doing Beacon of Speech. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I want to hone the craft, and I want to be able to say eventually, this is how we can make money. But right now we're making no money and we're still doing it. You know what I mean? And if I ever got it all taken away from me, I told you, I'd probably be on the street corner with a megaphone going, CNN is plotting their agenda. CNN, they're the devil, they're corporate masters are trying to...
And then the cops would pull up.
And then the cops will pull up and beat me with a nightstick. And again, people may say, well, Fred, you know, you listen to the cops. That's why you didn't get beat. Yeah, that's the point of the story. The cops are here. And I'm like, yeah, what can I do? You know, I already got my hands behind my back. You know, yeah, there was a point to that story. And then you smart off and you say, oh, they're bastards after you leave. You know, I used to say this at Taco Bell all the time. And I'm sorry to dwell on Taco Bell. We would have people who would come into the drive-thru and they'd order, right? They would come in and they'd be like, I want 10 tacos. And they're at the drive-thru window. And then they'd be like, yeah, asshole. And last time we had to wait 10 minutes. Oh, a-hole. I had to wait 10 minutes for my tacos, so try and hurry it up this time. That's not how you do it.
Yeah.
Okay? Here's how you do it. You order your 10 tacos, and then if it takes 10 minutes, as you drive away, you know, you're like, oh, thanks, asshole. It took you 10 minutes. You see what I'm saying? Because I'm not going to run out the window. You know, and it's the same thing with the cops. You don't say anything until after they're gone. It's the same premise. You don't yell at the guy making your food before he makes your food. It's like, it should be the way of the world. You got to, you know your place. But Fred Hunt, you have to know your place. Nobody likes Speaking of Speech. Okay, fair enough. Okay, you got me. You got me, you know, robot. So... But so our song of the day is White Room by Ace Frehley. Ted, I'm telling you, if you get a chance, look it up, download it, however you get it. That's the song of the day. And like I said, you could tell that guy still has a love of music. Okay, he still loves music 40 years later. Okay? So I give big thumbs up to Ace Frehley because, like I said, it was amazing. And big thumbs down to Gene Simmons, who, you know, is just milking the cash cow. I'm still mad that basically, okay, I want to end this, but I want to tell this short story. Kiss finally got in the Rock Roll Hall of Fame, okay? They said that we are going to put in Peter Criss, Ace Frehley, Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons. And
that's it?
And that's it. And... Gene Simmons goes, no. He goes, the guys who are in KISS now have been in KISS longer than the original guys. If they don't get to play, we're not playing. Right? Well, they said, well, no, we're not putting them in. It had to do with money because you remember how we talked about...
Right now, the original members that are in KISS are Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons?
Yes.
And that's it.
That's it.
So Peter Criss and Ace Frehley are not currently.
Yes, they have not been in KISS in a long time. And Gene Simmons.
Well, didn't they? They were the original guys,
right?
And then they left, but then they come back for a certain amount of time.
I think Vinnie Vincent was there, and then Ace Frehley came back, but they would come and go. By the end of the '80s, they were not in KISS anymore. Okay, so say they weren't in KISS past 1990, just for rough math. That means they haven't been in KISS in 20 years.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? But again, Gene Simmons says, if my guys don't play, we don't play. But don't forget, he got inducted, and then Steve Miller blew the cap. You know, it's not really to the advantage of the artist to go. So again, Gene Simmons didn't play the Rock Hall, not because of any argument he had with Paul Stanley or Peter Criss. It's because it wasn't in his advantage to play. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he was using that as his crutch. Well, if If my new guys aren't well, why in the world would we put John Doe in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame just because he agreed to a lesser percentage than Ace Frehley because you screwed him out of his percentage? And Gene Simmons would be like, whoa, at the end of the day, I almost used a bad slang word about he screwed people out of money.
Yeah.
And because that's the way Gene Simmons operates. And you keep hearing stories. I'm telling you, when Gene Simmons dies, a few people are going to be like, we love Gene Simmons, people like Scott Ian and stuff. But most of the people are going to treat him like they treated the guy from, Glenn Frey. Like, well, at the end of the day, Glenn Frey got paid, and that's all that mattered to Glenn Frey.
Yeah.
And when Gene Simmons goes, there's going to be a lot of that, too. Okay? And I write that down. If I got my predict, Gene Simmons is probably going to live to be 110 years old.
Yeah.
So, but the point is that that's how that guy operates. Like, him and Glenn Frey, they're about. We talked about it with Chinese athletes or American athletes in China. They're about the brand.